So, very good evening, everyone. Welcome to the course. Technically, we had a small discussion yesterday along with Gaurav sir, where we looked at what the trajectory will be for the course, right? Where this course, technically, from some of you would have done the previous last year course, is somewhat different. Different as in therein, we were primarily focused on making you all an early career data scientist, right? Where we trained you in different coding, data handling, etc., etc. Now, one of the main aspects in this course will basically take you through a journey through three pillars. And there will be three pillars of our course. One of them will be GIS, the Geographic Information System. Second will be Python programming, again, coding, because in today's world, it's very important, no matter if you're working with GIS or any other kind of data, it's very important to deal with, to have a good coding hand so that you can automate stuff. You can do repetitive tasks at a very fast pace, right? So that's the second thing, the second pillar. And third, for any kind of an analytics, any analysis, either it's through GIS or any other data, you need to have a very thorough understanding of the statistics. Again, statistics from a practical aspect, not just theoretical. So you should be able to, for example, load data, clean data, and then perform simple regression analysis, descriptive statistics, hypothesis testing, etc. Right? So that as an environmental scientist, if you are given some data, you're able to take a decision and ultimately give conclusions in your project or your work, for decision making. So with statistics, that adds a lot of value addition. So again, the last part, the next three classes will be demo classes, right? That's what sir also updated. So in all those three classes, I'll give you a demonstration of what will be in the course. I mean, again, we'll start working on all the three pillars. We'll work. The first lecture today is completely dedicated to GIS. Next weekend, we'll talk about one lecture of statistics and one layer of coding, programming, right? And then as we move along, we'll kind of amalgamate all these things and move along. Okay? So, chalo, let's start. First and foremost, GIS, right? I mean, the full form is basically Geographic Information System. जब भी किसी भी topic को, when we first, when we are given such a topic, right, a new chapter or new, I would say, subject to learn, that is the way this course has been designed. जहाँ पे आपको, of course, we'll give you a lot of training on fundamentals, but आज के time में, in today's world, theoretical concept is of no use, right? Knowing it about GIS, writing those question answers is not going to take you anywhere. So along with this fundamental training on the know-how of GIS, you will also get to know about practically dealing with, a GIS software, primarily QGIS. Again, why QGIS? That's an open source software. And today it's being used by millions of people across the globe, right? In all sectors. There is to look into what's trending in the world, there is something called as Google Trend. आप लोग सब लोगों ने सुना होगा Google Trend के बारे में. So you can just go and do a Google Trend on GIS, जिसमें you'll get a time series कि समय के साथ से किस हिसाब से QGIS का यूजेज बढ़ा है. So you will see कि 2016 से लेके 2022 I mean till now, there is a quantum leap of jump, right? Because it's kind of open source. Now, there are other softwares as well, right, to do your GIS work. For example, ArcGIS, A.S.S. I mean, ArcGIS S3 is a pioneer. I'm not going to comment on that, but that's something which is not open source, right? And the main objective of this course is for any student or any young environmental science scientist who wants to use this technology in any of his projects. So that's how this entire module of GIS is designed. Okay? So today you'll get a lot of firm foundation background on one of the first pillars, that's GIS. Okay? Again, when you talk about GIS, friends, उसमें एक इम्पॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट ये है कि इट स्टैंड्स फॉर ज्योग्राफिक इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम. बट किसी भी इन टर्म्स ऑफ कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम, अगर मैं एकदम बेसिक से बात करूं, इफ यू जस्ट टॉक अबाउट बेसिक्स, in terms of where any object is located, right? So for that, we have, from our, when we were kids, we have studied something called as the geometric domain. Geometric domain, आपको याद हो, class 6, 7 में, or whenever we started learning geometry, we had those XY planes, right? XY planes में जहाँ पे आप points को plot करते थे, and ultimately the usage was कि where is that point in the geometric domain, right? So I can get an idea कि ये point is positioned at this location, right? So on the right hand side, what you see in this slide is just that simple normal coordinate system, right? In which one can basically, for example, I can draw a line and, I can locate where, certain data points are. Also, कभी कभी ऐसा भी होता है कि, when we are dealing in two-dimensional geometry, some of the data could be in the other plane. So for example, I might have some data which is positioned in this side, right? For example, it's a negative X or negative Y. And that is where the things slightly become, complicated, specifically when you're talking about real world objects. So that's why the place. क्यों आया, कैसे आया, I'll talk about it in a moment, right? क्यों कैसे है, because हर चीज के लिए, in life or in science, ऐसा कहते हैं ना कि किसी चीज की जरूरत पड़ती है तो ही वो चीज की डिस्कवरी होती है. That's how the world has moved on. So on the similar ground, GIS की भी कुछ ऐसी story है. As students, we all are students trying to understand, learn GIS, we should always know कि कहाँ से origin हुआ था, क्यों हुआ था, right? So we know what's normal coordinate system, right? We know the XY coordinate system. Now, apart from that, there's something called as geographic information system, right? Now, whenever the term geographic comes, आप इसमें ये समझो कि straight away location comes into perspective, as in it is talking about a place where some object is positioned and we want to know its exact location, यानी कि location specificity. So GIS is made up of three terms: geographic, information and system. Geographic का मतलब हुआ लोकेशन स्पेसिफिसिटी, मतलब कि जब भी हम GIS को यूज करेंगे, विल बी इंटरेस्टेड इन नोइंग एग्जैक्टली वो ऑब्जेक्ट या दैट थिंग वेयर इट इज geographically placed, right? And when one talks about geographical positioning, it's basically on the geoid, on the earth where it is, right? So on the bottom panel, you see there is a geographic domain. ऊपर मैंने normal coordinate draw किया x, y, z. Now when that comes or get transformed to the earth system, that becomes a geographic domain. So that's the G of GIS. The second part, that's the information systems in GIS. That's equally important, friends. क्योंकि अब मान लो, if I'm trying to deal with, objects in large domain, right? So I would somehow need a computer or a database to kind of hold those informations. Only then I'll be able to, draw out a visualization or carry out some work. So GIS complete तभी होता है जब geographic के साथ साथ we get the informatic or the information system in place, right? And for that, basically, that information is stored in a computer in a very simplified and easy manner. So अभी के लिए बस इतना समझिए, GIS is nothing, it's geographic information systems. Geographic का बात, location specificity, as in we want where is it exactly positioned on earth, what I'm trying to, visualize, summarize, or if I'm trying to ask a question, the moment you have some data on, some geographical data in an information system, you can start asking questions. कैसे questions we'll talk about in a moment. ठीक है? So that's the opening basically, friends. That's the starting. Again, जब भी किसी रास्ते का शुरुआत करते हैं, whenever we embark on a journey, it's important to take blessings from the one who have carved the way. And the father of GIS is basically Roger Frank Tomlinson, right? Now there's a very beautiful story around how this GIS system got into, how it got into being. So this is something about 1980s, friends. So Roger Frank Tomlinson, who was a geographer, but also very importantly was a computer science scientist. Okay, so he was working in Canada, right? Canada mein there is a city called as Ottawa City, or in his basically organization, maybe the consultancy they were giving, the municipality of the Ottawa City was coming under the purview, or his company had to give the guidance, okay, on GIS, on not on GIS, sorry, GIS is a story to come up. So his company had to give basically directions to the municipality. अब municipality के बारे में अगर हम अपने देश के बारे में बात करें, इंडिया के बारे में, इफ आई से म्युनिसिपैलिटी, सबसे पहले दिमाग में क्या आता है? इन द चैट बॉक्स क्विकली, द मोमेंट आई यूज द वर्ड म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन, व्हाट इज द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट कम्स टू योर माइंड इन द चैट बॉक्स क्विकली? Municipality से what is the first thing, friends, that comes to your mind? Am I audible? You can just drop in a message in the chat box. People well-being, okay. Biodegradable waste, okay. Anybody else? Good. Both of them are right answers. Anybody else? Town city, excellent, right? So technically, I'm basically speaking from Patna. For me, municipality, मेरे लिए क्या है ना? In the morning when I leave to office, and anytime I find a place जहाँ पे अचानक से गड्ढा खोद दिया जाता है, right? The road is a well prepared road. Town planning, excellent, Manisha. A well prepared road is suddenly uprooted, and they say we have to put in a pipeline inside. Okay, so municipality is something which takes care of these activities in your cities, where basically the pipeline of water supply, sewage, the town planning, all that kind of comes into play, right? So yeah, garbage, rubbish, all those things come to play. Construction activities, excellent. All of you gave the right answer. So साहब यहाँ पे क्या होता है, ओटावा सिटी में ऐसे ही कुछ परेशानी होने लगती है जब म्युनिसिपैलिटी को अपनी ऑपरेशंस करने होते थे. सो व्हाट हैपेंड कि किसी ने बोला अच्छा ये सीवर लाइन हमें डालना है वहां पे, और जब भी वहां पे द जो टीम थी म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन की, इंजीनियर्स की, व्हेन दे गो देयर, दे स्टार्ट डिगिंग, और वहां पे कोई पावर केबल को वो तोड़ देते थे. वेरी कॉमन इन आवर लाइफ एज वेल. या कोई ऑप्टिकल फाइबर को तोड़ देते थे ऑन अ डे टू डे बेसिस. And this was becoming a big menace because the city was designed in such a way कि अलग अलग layers थे, right? There was a layer on which the sewer lines run, there was a layer where these cables etc kind of run, and often there used to be mutual disturbances. And ultimately they came to this consultant where the father of GIS, Mr. Roger Frank Tomlinson, he was given the task. The task was, can you find a solution to it? And that is where in Ottawa City GIS का development हुआ, where you can imagine, जैसा कहते हैं ना कि जब कोई चीज की नीड होती है तभी उसकी डिस्कवरी होती है, राइट? सो देयर वर डिफरेंट लेयर्स व्हिच वर प्रिपेयर्ड, एंड दैट इज वेयर द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ जीआईएस केम इनटू बीइंग, जहाँ पे सीवर लाइंस का किस लेवल पे लेयर है, क्या टाइमिंग है उनके काम का, ऑल दैट वाज मैप्ड, एंड अल्टीमेटली दैट काइंड ऑफ मूव्ड इनटू a more generalized concept and became a worldwide concept in the next few decades to follow, which is being done today as well, right? And for example, you would be happy to know, in India now a lot of town planning officers are being recruited with the GIS background, with this same concept जो कि 50 साल पहले started in somewhere in Ottawa City in Canada. That's why sir is the father of GIS, or the Geographic Information System. Exactly. Necessity is the mother of invention. I was just forgetting it. Thanks, Aritra, for adding this. Thank you. So that's about the history of GIS. Now, one more thing. This is again, when I talk about when you're trying to learn things, it's very important कि आप जो first publications है ना, उनके ऊपर बात करें. किसी भी field में you want to be an expert, you should be always trying to look into the first bit of research work which kind of came out. So this is one of the first papers which was published by Anderson 1988, where what you see on the left hand side is the first map of GIS. बड़ा टूटे हुए फॉर्म में है, बट यहाँ पे बेसिकली the idea is geographical information system is why is it important? Uski kya power hai? So what you see on the left hand side is there are two panels, A and B, right? And then there is a legend. Legend is the wetness threshold, right? And what you see also is you can read this paper from Anderson et al. 1988, but I'll just give you the gist of it and why it is important. So what happens on this is you see on the top panel there is a shaded area, right? Look into this, friends. There is a shaded area and there's another shaded area. ठीक है, ध्यान देना इन दोनों चीजों पे. So what the paper basically discusses is in this area what is the wetness threshold and how it will be disturbed if this area, this basically mapping एक area जहाँ पे if I change the forested land to a different land use classification, right? For example, if there is a forest, if I'll cut it out, so how, how the basically the river basin will behave. So this is basically a river basin and यहाँ पे ये सॉइल मॉइस्चर का प्लॉट है. बट अल्टीमेटली आप ये देखो जो की मैसेज यहाँ पे इस पेपर से निकल के आता है, राइट, 50 years बैक, कि एरिया सेम है चाहे यहाँ पे, आई मीन द लेंथ ऑफ दिस एरिया इज सेम, आई मीन the length and breadth. It is just that this area once is in this scenario, one is in this scenario, right? And how that basically impacts the wetness of the soil, and that somehow, from a hydrological application, कैसे वो wetness को imply करता है, and that can lead to a different scenario. If say, if I convert a box of area over here from forest to some other land use, and in this from forest to some other land use. So that's the simulation basically. So, or something called as the predictive modeling. So the moment in GIS you have, the location कि कोई चीज कहाँ पे है land use में, right? You can also create scenarios and do modeling and then come up with a predictive modeling study to kind of give an impact again for decision making. That's the strength of GIS. That's why, I mean, why GIS is kind of important. Exactly. This is the first model done, Anderson 1988. You can just imagine it's an hydrological application published 50 years back, and you can look at the quality of image, right? And how the images were generated. Now what's the quality of image which is generated and how it has changed, because of the advancement in computer science as well. All right. So if that is done, so finally, it's very important because, of course, our course, in Green Skills, A.S.S. Science Foundation, will be more inclined on the practical aspect. चीजों को करना है, right? But still, we are giving you a brief background. So that's why just remember this. GIS, Geographic Information System, is a computer-based information system designed to accept large volumes of spatial data, right? You understand? Spatial data as in location specific data derived from variety of sources. As in, ये जो data है, spatial data, it can come from say a satellite, it can come from a bunch of sensors, or it can come from an already undigitized map from an ancient time. And by doing something called as digitization, which also we look upon in the course, and ultimately, or some model, some weather forecast model, that data, and ultimately that is used to display these data sets according to the specified specification by the user. Ultimately, the end goal is कि आप इस data को इस तरीके से present करो that it of course it should be compelling, visualization based, but it should give you information for taking a decision, right? So that's why GIS is so powerful. Okay, so now we understand what is GIS. Again, जब बोलचाल की भाषा में, colloquium terms में, if I talk about, you can even say it as a geographic information system or a geographical information system. अगर मैं academic discipline में बात करूं, if someone is doing, trying to do an informatics course, there are different universities which offer course in geoinformatics. So there they talk this, they they use this language of geographic information science for GIS, right? So that's basically more of an academic tone, right? Again, मैंने यहाँ पे highlight किया example QGIS. Why QGIS? We'll be using, primarily we'll be using QGIS in our course, okay, in this course. Now, Fine, but why QGIS? I gave you a brief introduction in the earlier part as well. Now, QGIS basically of the FOSS policy, that is free and open source software, FOSS, right? And that's for GIS, right? That's what I think makes, because GIS is such a powerful tool, if you are able to do that in an open source software, can anybody tell me what does open source mean over here? Okay, there's a question. So when do we use ArcGIS and when do we use QGIS? Okay, so technically, Shubhangi, we can use both, right? Because both of them are for GIS applications. But ArcGIS is primarily, it's developed by an organization called as A.S.S, right? And that's why it's not a open source product. You might have to purchase a license, right? I'm not sure if the student version license is free in ArcGIS as of now. It used to be few years back, but now the world has completely transformed into QGIS. If you're not doing any development, for doing development, servers, huge data sets, again, then there is dependency on ArcGIS for certain things. But technically, for doing a research project, specifically as early career scientists, QGIS is the tool which is being used by millions across the globe in present time. Okay. And again, as an interface, there could be some differences, but if in this course, the moment you get an expertise in QGIS, you can very well use that skill. And tomorrow, if you are given a project where you have to work with ArcGIS, you can tailor your experiences to kind of navigate your way in ArcGIS as well. Okay, so is that clear? Shubhangi, please give me a confirmation. Okay, thank you. So software which you don't have to subscribe or can be used by common people other than professional. Exactly. So technically the point is open source में दो बात समझना. मैं I talk in a very क्या बोलूं उसको non-technical भाषा में. I'll just try to explain you. Open source का मतलब है कि मुझे कोई पैसा नहीं देना, right? I can freely download. और ऐसा क्या ना कि for example we all have mobile phones. We all purchase mobile phones, friends, right? When you buy a mobile phone, हर कुछ दिन में आप देखोगे when you have a new mobile phone, you get an update after few days, है ना? जो आपने पेमेंट किया, whatever amount you have paid, now the software upgrades happen in the world, right? And that's why whatever upgrades happen, your mobile also is tuned to those changes, so that you are not missing out to some new technology or some new data. Your phone undergoes a new update, right? So similarly, अगर if I have a paid license, तो मुझे हमेशा हर साल कुछ पैसे देने होंगे, right? And I'll keep getting those updates. Whereas in case of QGIS or an open source, I don't have to pay anything, and of course I'll still get the updates. जो भी latest updates होंगे, there'll be updates happening every now and then. ठीक है? And the last thing is, which is very important to give, to express your token of gratitude, is because this development happens because of certain developers which are working around the clock, around the globe, right? And they are making the things available to us at free of cost. So of course एक ये चीज तो जानना ही है that there is no cost involved, but you also should be thankful in all those open source libraries or packages what you learn, that there are developers. Just think, some computer scientist who is sitting in some remote part of the world. I'll show you an image on that as well in today's presentation, specifically for QGIS, where you will see that that guy is making effort to make those updates free to us, right? So that's the FOSS, the free and open source software technology. Okay, so I hope that answers the question and you guys would understand it. Again, it has millions of users worldwide. That's why QGIS, right? The question why QGIS is because we have such the FOSS policy and the millions of users worldwide, right? Now, मैंने कुछ देर पहले बोला था आपसे asking questions, right? Now, what kind of questions? Now, in GIS, once you know the location of certain things, you have to ask certain questions, right? They could be geographic questions. For example, मोबाइल में अक्सर हम करते हैं, right, when we are driving, कि कहाँ पे nearby there could be a petrol pump. Now you have to imagine at the back end of Google Map, there is, this is what geospatial information system is happening. Real time it is locating the petrol pumps and fetching you in your mobile phone. So next time, whenever you are using Google Map, again, if you're already doing with that perspective, well and good. If not, ये जो realization होता है ना, उसके बाद there is a different way you look at technology. So I hope some of you might just have had that, realization. I also had that someday. कि whenever you run a query like that, कि कहाँ पे nearby restaurant है, this is what it happens. There is geographic information and quickly an analysis tool runs in where it takes your location and tells you the location pops out कि आपके near around में these are the 5 restaurants, right? And वो क्यों? Because those restaurants have been put up in the geographical system, right? In the information system, their geography has been put up. Their geoinformatics have been put up. That's why you are able to get that information. And that's the type of questions in GIS one might ask. Again, there could be spatial analysis, for example. Exactly. Already in the database. Excellent. So that's the whole point. And you might do some spatial analysis. For example, in the 5 kilometer vicinity, tell me what is the population. Not necessary आप geographic काम ही करो हमेशा, right? We'll talk about attributes in this course, right? There are various attributes. So one might do an analysis कि 5 kilometer के circle में what is the population. If there is some, I don't know, I'm just giving an example. Some of you might take up that as a challenge or a project that there is some expected, rainfall or climate change, right? And ultimately there could be, you might find is 5 kilometer radius mein, what is the population? So what could be the vulnerability, right, in that spatial extent? So these are the multiple level of, operations one can do if, one is, well versed with this technology of QGIS, right? Exactly. Topography, green cover, multiple things, right? As environmental scientists, I'm sure what I'm saying, you guys would be knowing more of what all can be done. Absolutely. Great. As I told you, it's not just about making maps. Of course, it is about making maps. Ki map to banana hum seekhenge ही. Whenever we have, either a raster data or a vector data, क्या होता है ये सब? If you're knowing it, well and good, else you'll be knowing all these things in a very much detailed manner, both at theoretical level and at practical level. So we'll be making maps, we'll be doing analysis, we'll be analyzing data, location data. As I told you, key specific location and what is the population. Apart from just from making maps, GIS should be used for analysis, to come up with some, different insights, etc. So GIS uses what we called as the geodata or the spatial data or GIS data, right? That's basically the location specific data. जो मैं slide 1 से बात कर रहा हूँ, same thing. We are building up today. We are building a strong foundation. Don't get offended if you get the same information again. But the point is, you are trying to learn, is there any extent of measurement for GIS? Absolutely. You can measure, you can basically there's something called as Shubhangi, something called as a shape file, right? So you might create a shape file, and inside that shape file, you can do an analysis. You can have, extent defined for you to do the kind of measurement you want, right, in your analysis. Is that clear? So not necessary measuring a temp. I mean, of course, you can measure the distance, 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer. But what I'm saying is there are next level of applications as well. For example, the spatial analytic tool, right, where you can basically overlay a shape file and inside that region come up with some more detailed analysis, right, from multiple data sets, right? And that's why what information is in front of your slide is basically in front of us is added to maps as individual layers. Always remember this word, layers. Information GIS platform में layers के form में होंगी, right? And we'll be always dealing with different layers. For example, अगले कुछ slides will talk about whatever. I mean, I've already prepared a lot of content for this course, right? So I'm just bringing some of those insights over here. Don't get offended कि or overwhelmed with it. We'll build onto it from a very basic level, but just try to understand what's the big picture, right? That's the whole idea what I'm trying to bring over here. So there are individual layers. So what you see on this is ये भी again this from a GIS, again ये QGIS का that's basically uh, how the software looks like when you're working with it. But this is some image where you are seeing there is water body, there is elevation. So there are multiple layers interacting over here. That's what I'm trying to say. In GIS, you will have multiple layers. So of layers kya pe, if you just look over here, focus, excuse me, focus on this part. This talks about the layers, friends. यहाँ पे देखो क्या है, there is water and there is dam के अलग अलग कुछ copies बने हुए हैं, right, to basically show the elevation, right? Dam क्या होता है? Dam is digital elevation model, basically किसी भी point का earth पे what is the elevation, right? So this is one of the ways of showcasing in GIS where water along with the elevation is being put, again, which can be again utilized for multiple applications. For example, if there is rainfall which might happen, so which are the areas which will be under higher risk of getting flood, right? For example, I'm just giving an example, but the most important aspect is you have to deal with GIS in form of different layers. So in this case we have 4 different layers, right? Oops, just I have to clean this up. Clear all drawings. Similarly, that's another case where we'll try to map different capital cities across the globe. So what you have again, you have different layers again, 5 layers are interacting. For example, you have the capitals, you have a gratitude 10-degree layer, you have the land, you have the background, and all that are giving you such a compelling visualization of different, basically capital cities across the world. For example, हमारा दिल्ली यहाँ पे shining over here, right? Delhi from India is shining. I hope you're you're able to get the perspective why GIS is so powerful and what all other stuffs which we can do. This is again from the course itself. We have taken I'm just taking some material from far ahead of our lectures, but we'll build onto it step by step. So don't worry, it's pretty interesting. I'm just trying to show what's the uh, basic perspective around it. Similarly, friends, this is how the QGIS ka software or the platform looks like. There are different zones. You have to just understand when you're working with the QGIS package or the software. I don't say package, it's a software, right? So there are different windows, right? If you remember, uh, anybody, for example, in R, there is something called as R Studio, right? That's a graphical user interface. So there's also a graphical user interface where there are different windows, right? For example, there's the map canvas where all our map features will be there. Similarly, on the left hand side, this is the layers. I just showcased how different layers interact in GIS. I just showed there are 4 layers, 5 layers where we had an interaction. Similarly, on the bottom panel, there is a browser where you can go into and access different data files. Again, and then the top ribbon, just like Excel, there are different kind of features, what all you can do, saving the graph, etc., zooming out, zooming in. Just a second, let me just have some water. All right. So just like, for example, any software, we have the tools in the top and the top ribbon, basically, it talks about different headings, project, edit, etc. So that's just like any other software, no rocket science. We'll be able to use this and we'll be able to do some amazing, visualizations and again, from the fundamentals, right? So this is our place, basically from where we get the GIS software. I mean the QGIS .org. That is where all our resources are, from where we need to download. And again, I can go on for this lecture for hours, right? But rather than me giving you uh, कि QGIS से आप क्या क्या कर सकते हैं fascinate करने के, you can just go there and spend some time in the tab called as Discover QGIS. ठीक है, this will give you a lot of more insights. Of course, we'll cover all those things in the lecture, but जब भी आपको time मिले, specifically, you know, in as we move along in the course, at least go in that aspect and look into these different aspects of what all one can do in QGIS. Okay, any doubts, anybody? Please. I'll just take a moment to stop and then we move ahead after a minute. Tell me if there is any doubt, anything one would like to ask, or if I'm going fast, may I slow down anything? Is everything clear to everyone? What all we did? Okay, great. So friends, I just talked about in the starting, you know, giving that empathy or, you know, the gratefulness to the developers. So this is the map where, again, sir, anyhow, AutoCAD have any role in GIS? Okay, so there are two questions. The first question is AutoCAD's role in GIS. So technically, Shubhangi, that's a very good question. When I talking about in the starting point, you know, in the my first slide where I was just talking about the normal coordinate system. So in AutoCAD, what used to happen was our coordinate system was fundamentally a normal coordinate system जहाँ पे x, y, z के फॉर्म में चीजें रहती हैं. Right? For example, someone might build a, you know, building design or something or the other, or do some other kind of a simulation study using AutoCAD analysis. But the main strength of GIS comes from the geographic information system, right? Basically, you are putting the things or your analysis is based on the real world positioning of that, you know, in the globe. We bring in that data, right, in the computer world, right? And we have a very accurate, you know, location specific understanding, right? And based on the location specific understanding, we are able to, you know, draw insights and do all kinds of different analysis, right? So of course, their AutoCAD is also a software which can be clubbed to GIS in real world industry, but uh, in many projects that is done as well. But in our case, specifically when we are dealing with challenges of, you know, environmental aspect, QGIS is the, you know, the way forward to kind of do our analysis and get all our project work kind of done. Is that okay, Shubhangi? And of course, there is of course, you can always, there are different softwares which can be clubbed in. AutoCAD may also have a role to play in it through a plugin. There is something called as a plugin where you can, you know, different softwares or packages can be clubbed or brought into the GIS environment, right? But again, that will be something which would be beyond the scope of our course. And we'll be first trying to build our fundamentals. And of course, we'll bring up to your level where you can in and independently explore any such plugin in future. Okay. I hope that answers your question. And there is another question that is ArcGIS similar to QGIS? Yes, absolutely. Whatever analytics, whatever geospatial data analysis, which we will learn in QGIS, everything can be done in ArcGIS, right? We won't have to compromise on anything. When we reach to the last week of our, you know, journey, I'll take a full, just do remind me, not remind me, and of course I'll just take a note of it, where I just talk about the limitations of QGIS, right? Because it's very important that whenever we learn a software system, we also have to know the limitations out of it, right? And once we learn it, I'm sure you'll find that ArcGIS is also missing in most of those aspects. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Akbar Hussain. Okay, great. So this slide over here is talking about the developers, the developer community of QGIS, you know, which is spread worldwide. In India, it's in Bangalore, basically, where a bunch of developers from the QGIS community sit and interact. So we have to be grateful to them. They are making such a platform available to us at free of cost, right? And also, if you are trying to learn a software, it's important to understand who all are using QGIS. So you can see the list is there's a long list where we have major agencies across the globe which are which are using these softwares in their applications. So it's very imperative that we utilize and have a thorough understanding of the software, right? So in a nutshell, QGIS is free, QGIS is powerful, QGIS is global, and QGIS is a community. Community is it's a community driven thing. I told you there's a host of developers across the globe. So whatever updates happen, it gets uploaded, and the next version, or the latest update is made to the QGIS, and we always get the next version of GIS ready to be basically installed, and one can start working. Right, again, going at the website, I'll show you that there in a moment. So before kind of ending the PPT show for today, it's very important we kind of understood. I gave you a very firm understanding ki QGIS kya hai, क्यों है, right, from where it started, what it is. I hope you have a अंडरस्टैंडिंग एट अ फाउंडेशन लेवल की जीआईएस क्या होता है, एंड इस कोर्स में हम क्यों जीआईएस यूज करने वाले आने वाले दिनों में, राइट, इन नेक्स्ट फ्यू डेज टू कम वी विल बी लर्निंग इन सम टर्मिनोलॉजीज, अगेन not just theoretically but practically. Here are some of the terminologies which we'll have to be an expert on if we have to be an expert in QGIS. It's basically, for example, layers, shape files, geo package, that's a data type, CRS, that's the coordinate reference system, plugins, right? As someone was asking about the AutoCAD thing, field, raster, that's basically a data type, raster data, vector data. So we'll be using learning all these different aspects, in detail, right? Of course, all these things will have, a one-line definition. For example, what is, for example, what is a raster data? It's basically a gridded form of a data. It's in some kind of a data format, but we have to understand it from a practical angle, friends, right? So with that, I just thank you, and I'm not ending. Just please hold on. We have to look into a couple of more things before we kind of end today's lecture, and that will also give you assignment number 1 for your course of what all we did today. Okay, so in all the WhatsApp groups, we'll upload the assignment 1, so that please read it up and perform the analysis, which will just show you in a minute. Just hold on. Right. All right. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Please, in the chat box, quickly, please message me. Is my screen visible? Okay, great. So friends, this is the website, qgis. Okay, great. It's visible. So qgis.org, that's where you have the website where we get all the resources, right? That's our, Karm Bhumi, I would say, where we'll get all the different kind of information about the software, and also information, and also downloading the software. Now there is one piece of information on this uh, topmost right corner. Please focus over here. So what is written over here is Q 3.34.3, which basically means कि अभी के टाइम में जो वर्जन आपको मिल रहा है QGI से, that is 3.34.3. That is the current version available. I told you it's a community driven open source software. So it, there are updates which keep happening every now and then, right? So that's the piece of information. And what you see on the bottom is the 3.28.15. This is basically telling about which is the latest, most stable update. So 3.34.3, of course, is the latest available one, but 3.28.15 is the QGIS version, which is basically the most stable one in the recent times. right? That's the piece of information which one needs to have. Similarly, if that is done, you have to click on download now, right? So the moment you click on download now in the platform, you will see that there are two options. Download 3.34, ये तो latest है, right? I just told you, but I would prefer that you don't download 3.34. If you are already using QGIS, well and good. If not, do go to the most stable version. Just click over here, close this message. They ask for donation, and the moment you click on the latest, so it will start downloading the most stable version. Okay, I hope that's clear to everyone, right? Either you download the latest one or the most stable one. It's better to download the most stable one. Just click onto this link, right? It will start downloading the most stable one. So just hold on, I have to play a video because it's a 1 GB file, friends. Downloading, अगर मैं अभी डाउनलोड लगाऊं तो हमारी क्लास खत्म हो जाएगी. So I don't want to, get in that situation. I'll better play a video where I just recorded the stuff before the class today. I mean, I did way back. Procedure is same. Just stop a second. Is the screen visible to everyone? ये video सब लोग देख पा रहे हैं ना? I'm really sorry I didn't ask this question. Okay, great. folder which you will get inside this separate file. You click on QGIS. You have to click on QGIS desktop. All right. So everyone is able to see that, the process. Okay. So that's the first piece of task which is given to you. We have to install QGIS so that when we meet next, we start with our practical assignments week by week. In the next lecture, before showing you the next pillar, I'll talk about the entire curriculum of QGIS, right? What all are the topics which we'll cover in QGIS and in our training sessions. And of course, as I told you, it will be a two-way process where we look into a lot of things from the theoretical perspective from slides, but we'll also have an interactive, hands-on session as well, right? And apart from this, as I told you, there'll be some small questions which I'll upload today for your assignment number 1. And that is the model which we'll have. Every week, we'll have some assignments in the course as in forward, and there'll also be a task which will be given to you. The first task before we meet next week is to install QGIS. And also, if anybody in case faces any difficulty, so there is a software called as AnyDesk, right? It's used for remote desktop. Let me just show that as well to you guys. Just a second. That's another important piece of software, which to those who have worked in the Python course as well last time. So this is the software NET where I hope the screen is visible now, where remotely I can access your system, right? So in case you face any trouble in installation of QGIS or you have any query, on how to go about it, you can just, we can have a discussion on WhatsApp and I can log into your system and, fix any kind of an issue. And this is not just for our early days. We have a long journey ahead for next few months. So at one point or the other, I'm sure we might have to sometime we might have to use AnyDesk for any problem or anywhere if we are stuck, right, in our future assignments or tasks. So that's about the first pillar, what will be basically what is there in the next 3 months, and also a detailed curriculum will be showcased in the next class where we'll be talking about fundamentals of coding, right, the second pillar, and the third will be the fundamentals of statistics, right, and then we start with the full scale course after that. Okay, any doubts, anybody in the chat box? कोई भी doubt? सब कुछ क्लियर है इसमें? What is GIS? है ना? आप एक आम बोलचाल की भाषा में आई होप आप GIS को समझा पाए. I'm sure all of you would be already knowing a lot of things, but I just try to give you a perspective. और आने वाले दिनों में जब भी आप कोई मोबाइल ऐप यूज करें या GIS टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करें, ऑलवेज रिमेंबर कि बैक एंड में क्या हो रहा होगा, right? What spatial algorithm will be working in the backend, and been looking into all those things in the practical aspect. Absolutely, Aritra, we are also excited from the Green Skills team. So see you again next weekend. Okay, have a happy week, guys. The assignments will be uploaded soon. Bye.